Welcome back to another session. If you're joining for the very first time, my name is Hannah Grace and welcome to the book club. So this will be the last video of 2018. So I thought it would be a great idea to just kind of talk about some of my favorite books that I've read in 2018. Now, some of these books that I will be mentioning will contain spoilers, so please read down in the description box below to see which books that I'm talking about, because like I said, they do contain spoilers. Now, surprisingly, this was probably one of my hardest videos because I wanted to talk about so many awesome books that I've read. However, can't talk about all of them, otherwise we would be here for about 5 hours. So it was super hard for me to really narrow down my list. I just went through every single book that I've read and really kind of had to ask myself which ones I wanted to share with all of you for the end of the year. So 2 of these books were not published in 2018, but I still really enjoyed reading them this past year. So with that being said, let's get into the first book. The first book that I want to talk about is so dear to my heart, and it is Painting Sky by Rita Branches. Now, this one was not published in 2018, it was published in 2016. It is a contemporary new adult novel, and what I absolutely love about it is the story follows a girl named Jane, and she is an artist, and she's kind of struggling with her very, artistic side, and she's having a hard time getting in touch with that part of her, and so she ends up moving in with her boyfriend, who happens to live in this house with her brother and her boyfriend's older brother. So those 2 characters end up clashing, the boyfriend's brother and Jane, and they develop a romantic relationship. And what I loved the most about this book was that the struggles that Jane kind of faces are just struggles that probably every single girl could relate to, kind of deciding of how far to take her relationship with her boyfriend, how much she wants to give of herself to him, kind of struggling of who she really is, and how she sees her future going. So this book was absolutely incredible. I think it's such an underrated book. I think Rita Branches should get so much more love and hype because this writing in here was absolutely phenomenal. There really wasn't a kind of a moment where I thought that wasn't really needed in the book. I felt like every kind of scene was really critical and important for the character development of Jane and for the progression of the whole story itself. So this was really, really awesome. I definitely recommend this book to girls who are senior year in high school and just started college. I think this is such a great read. It's really not that thick. Yet again, I read pretty quickly and I'm, a machine. So, but this one was really awesome, and I just want to take a moment to appreciate this beautiful cover. Also, look at that winged eyeliner. Like, I could never do a winged liner like that. So this is a beautiful cover. It's a beautiful story, a great coming of age story, and I highly recommend it, and it was by far one of my favorites. So the next book that I want to talk about was not published in 2018. It was published in 2016, but it is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. Now, if this author's name sounds familiar, he's also this author of the Unwind series. Now, going back to the title of the book, I've heard 2 different pronunciations. I've heard Scythe and Scythe, whichever one you prefer. But this story follows a boy named Rowan and a young woman named Scythe, and they live in this world where humanity has conquered death, but in order to keep the human population down, there are scythes that go around and gleaning people. Now, people are gleaned just by whatever criteria that they end up meeting, and they are dead, and that's how they keep the human population under control. Now, Scythe and Rowan end up becoming very reluctant apprentices to a scythe, where they learn the entire ins and outs of what it means to be a scythe, how do you glean, and what it truly means to kind of hold death in your hands, and the kind of person you are when you are gleaning. So the thing that was probably the most astonishing about this book was the realization of how scarily accurate it could be to this world. Neil Shusterman integrates a whole lot of technology into this book, and how technology is basically running the entire world. And I think that that is just so telling for our world and our reality, how technology controls so much of what we do and how we live our lives. So this was such a great book. Rowan and Citra, their characters perfectly balance each other out. Citra is definitely, you know, she's kind of very determined and hard-headed, and Rowan, he's definitely kind of, at certain points I kind of found him kind of taking a step back and kind of just looking at things before jumping in, whereas Citra would just jump right into things. And so their character development is really awesome in this book. And there's a lot of like twists and turns in this book, so this book definitely keeps you on your seat. I could not put this book down because I just had to know what was happening. So yes, this book was really awesome, and I can't wait to read Thunderhead. This cover is absolutely beautiful. And so yes, this was a really, really amazing book. I highly recommend this to people who are very much interested in kind of like sci-fi, and who are very interested of kind of dealing with topics of life and death, because they definitely discuss that very in depth in this book, kind of what it means to live and what it means to die, and how technology in this book plays a role in that. So I highly recommend this. Alright, so this next book I want to talk about is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. Now, this book is definitely a book I would call a very cute and fun read. It's not that thick. I read this within a few hours. So the story follows a young woman named Isabel, and she is an extremely talented artist. She can, you know, create absolutely anything with her paints and her brushes. So one day she makes the awful mistake of painting emotions in a fairy prince's eyes. So he comes back for vengeance, demanding that she return to his court where she can face punishment. Now, what I really loved about this was that the main character, she had this amazing talent, which is painting, which is not a very threatening talent. It's not a very kind of intimidating one. Well, in this case, it became very dangerous. And that even though this one simple thing that most people overlook, which is painting, ends up becoming Isabel's greatest weapon and greatest strengths. And she completely turns the fairy world upside down with her amazing paintings, and she gives them emotions, and she causes this entire uproar. And what I absolutely loved was that the romance in this novel, it definitely was built off of an understanding of each other's personality and kind of, you know, fears. They both, Isabel and then her love interest, they both kind of understood that they all had, you know, something to be afraid of from each other, and they kind of help each other, and they realize that together their love can definitely save them and help them, and together they can figure anything out if they have to. So this was absolutely amazing. This cover is beautiful. I really enjoyed reading this. It was kind of like reading this was being like thrown into a whimsical and magical world. The detailing in this book is so good. It's very on point. And the writing here is really, really phenomenal. The story flows very well. It's not choppy, and I did never feel like kind of awkwardly reading through something or stumbling through some paragraphs. So I definitely would recommend this. Like I said, it's pretty quick to read. So if you're looking for something kind of quick but really magical, and of course has some romance in it, I definitely pick up this. This was a really good, enjoyable read. Alright, so the next book I want to talk about, it's not really a book, it's kind of a novella, and it is SightWitch by Susan Dennard. Now, I absolutely adore Susan Dennard. She was a marine biologist, she was a woman in science, and now she writes books, so basically everything that I'm trying to aspire to be in my life. I missed reading a Susan Dennard book after Wind Witch. I was so heartbroken that I had to wait such a long time for another book, but SightWitch was a really, really awesome read. This was the Barnes & Noble's exclusive edition, so there was extra content. There was a sneak peek of Blood Witch, which was really awesome, and I was like freaking out the entire time reading it because it was so good. So SightWitch is actually a prequel to the whole kind of like Witchlands universe, and it follows a writer, and she is a SightWitch sister, and so she is always kind of She's like living in like this temple, and every day she watches her sisters be summoned into this mountain and given the gift of sight, and she is the only one that is not. So then she ends up discovering that it is up to her to actually save her SightWitch sisters. Now, what I really loved about this book was reading those moments and reading and then having those moments of like those aha moments where I was finally able to kind of connect, things that happened in the first two books with, what was happening in here. So it was kind of like, okay, so that's why that happens. So that's how she meets Cullen, and this is who Ryder is, and that's how she ends up on the ship. So that was like really, really fun to read and kind of have those like moments. I love this beautiful cover. I love that she is this also like strong woman of color, and she's got her sword and her, raven right there, which is cool, and shows her like in like this environment of like kind of danger, but she looks strong and she looks fierce. So, and I'm also really loving this green color. One thing about Susan Dennard's novels that I love is like I love the colors that she kind of, or that they choose for her books. So this was a really awesome fun read. It was super quick to read. I read it like within an hour. So SightWitch was really awesome, and I cannot wait for Bloodwitch, which comes out pretty soon, and this was really awesome, so I would definitely recommend reading SightWitch. Alright, so the next book I want to talk about is another novella, really, and it is A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. Now, Sarah J. Maas has had one hell of a year. She had published A Court of Frost and Starlight, and obviously Kingdom of Ash, and she also had a child, too. So, as a woman, I definitely applaud her, because that is a lot to be doing in 1 year. So I definitely admire Sarah's strength and her resilience and her dedication to her books, because that like I said, that's a lot to do. But so Court of Frost and Starlight, it's so much to talk about, such a tiny little book. But the thing that I loved the most about this book was Farah's character development. Now, I really felt like reading this book that I've really got to see her full circle of character development. Farah, like, she, in the beginning when we meet her in ACOTAR, she's very angry, she's upset, she has this attitude. She's just thinking, she just has like this survival mode, and obviously that survival mode of hers carries through all of the books, but in A Court of Frost and Starlight, we see a different kind of Farah, and one that she's a little bit more at peace. She still feels kind of guilty over everything that happened in the war, but she kind of has this peacefulness to her that she ends up translating through showing that she's such a strong leader. She has strength, and she sets an example for her people. She has so much love in her heart for her people, and she would do anything for them. And so I love her in Akafas, and obviously seeing the inner circle was really awesome, and different perspectives was really, really great, because I really wanted to get more of a personality from the inner circle, and I think the different perspectives definitely helped with that. Also, I love this cover. I love noticing all the little details, from the insignia on the top, and then the paintbrushes down here at the bottom, and an arrow right there. So it's like little details like this that I think make books stand out, and I thought it was such really, really well done, and yeah, this book was really nice. And one thing that was also kind of surprising is all of a sudden Farah's very strong desire to be a mother. Now, I did not expect that from her at all throughout any of the other books, but I think it definitely shows, and it's very telling of how much she has grown as a lady, as a person, and that she really wants this thing that would change her entire world, her and Raysan's world, and she wants to do it. And I think that's such a touching thing. And reading about, whenever a woman decides that she wants to have a child is actually like a really, really touching moment, because that is such a deep and personal decision. And so when Farah realizes that she really wants a child, she wants to give Raysan a child, that was so sweet. And I was getting the feels, because we don't really read about that too often in young adult literature. So that was really sweet. So Court of Frost and Starlight definitely was like I said, you know, along with all these other ones, such a great read, and it was one of my favorites. So, well, the next book I want to talk about is Escaping from Houdini by Carrie Maniscalco. Now, this was my Halloween read, and I absolutely adored it. This was so good. Look at this beautiful blue cover. So, Escaping from Houdini is book 3 in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, and it follows once again Aubrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell, and they are now on a ship where they discover that someone is murdering passengers. So it is up to them to solve the murders, and through solving the murders, Aubrey Rose starts to kind of catch some feels for the very mysterious ringmaster. So this book definitely had a bit of a love triangle in it, and what I once again am so blown away by what Carrie Maniscalco does is the science that she uses. She uses late 18th century science, forensic science, and she still manages to pull something that is so intelligent, well-crafted, witty, and clever. Seriously, reading this book, I was like, I have no idea who the killer is, because there was so many different clues that were being thrown at you, and you never quite know what's happening, which keeps you on the edge of your seat. So this was such a great read. There was also a few moments when I thought that my ship of Thomas Cresswell and Aubrey Rose were in danger. So I did not. That was a little rough and hard to get through some of those moments in here. But I think they're going to be okay, hopefully. I don't want to speak too soon because there still is going to be one more book after this. But this was such a great read, and what I liked about this one is that the character development for Aubrey Rose, we see a much darker side of her. We really kind of see that side of her that is kind of like that side where the forensic science and everything that she's kind of seen is starting to get to her, kind of like all the darkness that she's, you know, witnessed, the whole evil side of humanity that she's experienced kind of starts to get to her, but somehow strangely it makes her a really good forensic scientist because she's able to kind of connect with killers. It's kind of odd, but it works. So hey, it was good to read. So yes, Escaping from Houdini was absolutely wonderful. Thomas Cresswell, I think I love more than Aubrey Rose. Thomas Cresswell, I love his attitude. I love his personality. I love that he is so good at what he does that he's like, he can like boast about it, and he always like shines, and like his work always speaks for himself. So I adore him. I hope nothing ever happens to him. I don't like Aubrey Rose, girl, you're cool and all that, awesome, you know, young lady in forensic science in the 18th century. But Thomas Cresswell is the love of my life. So yeah, this book was so good. I am rambling now about Thomas Cresswell, which I shouldn't do. So yes, I definitely recommend reading the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. If you are a young girl you're interested in forensic science. I was interested in forensic science, but then I quickly realized that is no longer for me. I would definitely pick this up because it's so interesting to kind of see the role of women in science during this time. And I think Aubrey Rose is kind of like this pioneer, so I definitely recommend it. So now the next book I want to talk about is probably one of the most highly anticipated books of 2018, and that was Kingdom of Ash by you know who. This book, 980 pages, the biggest book that I've ever read. This book has been one of the most emotional reads I've ever had. I like, this book is so much, but I don't have the words to like fully describe all of this. It was endearing, it was thrilling, it was scary, it was, you know, touching and sad, and it was like, you know, it was romantic at times. Of course, this is a math book. But this book, Kingdom of Ash, I just want to say I have so much mad respect for this woman, Sarah J. Maas, for continuing the series like she has, writing 2 series actually, and publishing this many books. I have a lot of respect for her. Kingdom of Ash was absolutely great. There definitely was so many moments where my heart just sank. For example, the death of the 13, the death of Gravel. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. And I think those moments were so. Oh, and also Dorian. Dorian and the moment with his father, and when Dorian's father reveals to him what his name is. Wow, that scene. We all know what I'm talking about. Oh my god. So I don't like getting emotional just like thinking about this book, because I started reading Thorn of Glass when I was in high school. Somebody had told me about Sarah J. Maas's books, so I started reading. I had read, at that time, Thorn of Glass was out, Crown of Midnight was out, Air of Fire was out, so I started to kind of read when I jumped on the bandwagon of when Queen of Shadows had come out, and I just remember just loving it and thinking that this girl, Selena, in the beginning was such a smart ass, and she had an attitude with her, but I loved that about her. And I loved that even though she was this badass assassin, she loved, you know, girly things, and she loved jewelry and clothes. And I feel like in kind of in media, when women are portrayed, sometimes there was always two basic categories when women were being portrayed, which is the first one, which was that they're super girly and they have no survival skills whatsoever. They're not capable of taking care of themselves at all, and they rely on men or other people to take care of them. But they're so feminine. And then we also saw the other version of women, which was that they were almost perceived as manlike, and that they could take care of themselves and they were strong, but they did not have those feminine qualities anymore. So what I liked about hers was seeing that balance in a character. So this book was really amazing. I think so many of us have read Kingdom of Ash, and we've all had the same reactions of all the feels ever. I remember finishing this book and turning over to my mom and like telling her about it, even though she's never read any of the books, but I just needed to talk to somebody about it immediately. And my poor mother had to get up for work in like 4 hours. It was, oh god. But yeah, Kingdom of Ash definitely holds such a special place in my heart, just because, you know, I think this is the longest book series that I've read and that I've stuck with. And, you know, Aelin, she's definitely has a place in my heart. Her character development is phenomenal. She becomes a queen. She is a queen at the end of this book. She's strong, brilliant, intelligent, loving queen. And, oh man. So this book was incredible. There were some things that I felt like maybe I would have loved to see a little bit more of. The scene when Rowan finally gets his revenge on Aelin's torturer. I feel like that would have been a really critical scene for readers to kind of get inside more of Rowan's head, of kind of like what he does. Also, the scene with Lorcan and Eolaid, hopefully I'm saying her name right, their smutty scene. It's kind of weird how much like people care about the smutty scenes in the Sarah J. Maas book, but they are, you know, she has made them important, so, you know, we have to talk about them. I know a lot of people were anticipating them finally kind of hooking up, or, you know, yeah, hooking up with each other, and I just felt like that scene lacked just a little bit. I really have come to understood that scenes like that, those intimate scenes between characters, are actually really important, because it shows a lot about who they are as a character, where they're going in the direction of their development, and their personality. So I really feel like I wish we could have seen a little bit more of that. I know that's like hard to say, see a little bit more of, exactly see what. But all in all, I thought this book was phenomenal. And wow, like, Wow, good job, Sarah J. Maas. She knows she's the shit. She knows she's a good writer. So this book was absolutely incredible. I don't know how many times I can say that. So I would definitely recommend reading Throne of Glass. I have mentioned my one gripe about Sarah J. Maas books. I just wish that there was a little bit more diversity in her novels. She obviously has such a huge reading base. It's so hard to be in the world of young adult literature and not hear about Sarah J. Maas and a couple of other famous authors. So I think that if she just had a little bit more diversity in them, she would pull in so many more people, and I think so many more people would be able to feel connected and to feel like they matter by reading her books, because she shows that diversity. So yes, this was amazing. Look how beautiful that is. I also saw her when she came to Naperville, because that's where I live, and hearing her talk about the final book was like a really eye-opening experience. Just hearing the author in person talk about their journey with the book, how far they've come, and their hopes and dreams for a book and for a series. So that was a great insight to her of who she is as a person, as an author. So and I definitely took away kind of respecting her so much more after going to see her. So Kingdom of Ash. So those are all of the really amazing books that I wanted to share with you guys that I read in 2018. Now, since it is the end of the year, obviously so many places are having sales, so I could not help myself when I saw that Half Price Books was having a 20% off everything sale. I went in right after work and I picked up a few things. So I picked up Nightblood by Ellie Blake and Walk on Earth, a Stranger by Ray Carson. I also picked up The Wicked Lovely by Marissa Marr, Dance of Thieves by Mary Pearson, and The Iron Flower by Lori Frost. Oh, I have so many books on my TBR, and I'm so thankful for my sister for getting me this new bookshelf for Christmas. Might be needing a third one by the end of this month, but we'll see. Alrighty, everyone, so that is it for today's session. Now, down in the comments below, talk about some of your favorite books you read in 2018, and talk about some of the books that you cannot wait for in 2019, because we all know there are some pretty good ones coming out here real soon. So talk about that in the comments down below, and I will see you all next session. Bye!